Welcome back to my KEEPUP channel. Japanese professor who tried to sue liberal SOAS University for racial discrimination after boss spoke to her about sushi is branded hypersensitive and has case thrown out. A hypersensitive Japanese academic who tried to sue a British university for racism after her university boss told her she liked sushi has had her case thrown out by a tribunal judge. Professor Nana Sato-Rossberg accused Provost Claire Ozan of being prejudiced, claiming she would not have said to a German "I like sausage." But an employment tribunal found senior academic Professor Ozan was just making small talk and trying to be friendly to find common ground, and no reasonable person would have taken offense at her question. Instead, Professor Sato-Rossberg was found by a judge to have been predisposed to finding fault with Professor Ozan, who she had previously accused of being unconsciously biased against her. It meant the culture and linguistics experts' claims of racial discrimination and harassment against the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, in London were thrown out. The hearing was told Professor Sato-Rossberg started teaching at the university in 2014 and 5 years later was appointed as head of department for the School of Languages, Culture and Linguistics. In 2020, Professor Ozan, an insect specialist who has appeared on BBC Radio 4 and calls herself the Muddy Boots biologist, was appointed deputy director and provost and became her manager. Following their first meeting, the hearing was told Professor Sato-Rossberg told a colleague she thought Professor Ozan would be biased because she was not British and was a woman and BAME. People like me, a non-white female, must constantly consider the possibility that they are treated unfairly because of gender or ethnicity, she said later. The Central London Tribunal heard that in September 2021, Professor Ozan told her about a Japanese sushi restaurant near her home which her family enjoyed. Professor Sato-Rossberg took exception to this, the hearing was told. She told the tribunal she would not have said to a German person, "I like sausage." If Professor Claire Ozan wished to make conversation, we had many commonalities through our work and professional academic endeavor, she added. But, she chose to speak only about topics directly relevant to my race, the liking of Japanese food and that her family like it and eat sushi. Over the next 6 months, Professor Sato-Rossberg continued to complain about Professor Ozan and in January 2022, she emailed a senior member of the university's administration accusing her of bullying and harassment. Asking for her to be replaced as her manager, the tribunal heard she said, "She tries to suppress my voice, the voice of a woman of color," before later claiming she had exhibited racist microaggression towards her. The hearing was told that later that year the university launched an investigation into her claims, during which time Professor Sato-Rossberg was promoted to professor in translation studies. After the investigation, completed in February 2023, rejected her claims, she took SOAS to the Employment Tribunal claiming race discrimination, race harassment, victimization and unfair treatment for whistleblowing. Rejecting her case, employment judge Gillian Brown said Professor Sato-Rossberg had concluded Professor Ozan was prejudiced against her without evidence from the start. The tribunal concluded that Professor Sato-Rossberg had decided, from the outset, that Prof. Ozan would be biased because she was not British and was a woman and BAME. In other words, she had decided that Prof. Ozan would be racist in her dealings with her. The tribunal considered that, as a result of this preconception, she was predisposed to find fault with Prof. Ozan and to see race discrimination in her interactions with her, when there was none. Of the sushi remark, the judge added, on one occasion in 18 months, Prof. Ozan spoke to Professor Sato-Rossberg warmly about her local Japanese restaurant and her family's love of sushi. She did so, knowing that Professor Sato-Rossberg was Japanese and believing that she would receive this positively. She was making small talk and trying to establish a point of shared interest. Ms. Ozan said nothing detrimental about Japan. This was one conversation of many, about many different subjects, which Prof. Ozan had with her over the course of 18 months. The tribunal concluded that, even if Prof. Ozan's comments in this regard were partly because of Professor Sato-Rossberg's race, they were not a detriment, nor harassment. The tribunal decided that Prof. Ozan mentioning a sushi restaurant and her family's love of sushi was not a detriment because a reasonable person would not consider themselves at a disadvantage when a manager trying to be friendly and find common ground, was enthusiastic about food from the person's country of origin. A reasonable person would not take offense at such complimentary and friendly words. In this case, Prof. Ozan's words were not even unfortunate. They were not reasonably seen as hurtful or misjudged. On the contrary, Professor Sato-Rossberg's objection reflected her own hypersensitivity and predisposition to find fault with Ms. Ozan. Source: dailymail.co.uk. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.